The history of humankind is essentially the history of war itself. For as long as people have existed, so have reasons for them to fight, either for territorial domination, resources, or, in more recent cases, fossil fuel reserves. And throughout history, some units have fared much better at the job than any other. As we're about to find out, these are some of the most successful and celebrated military units in history. In addition to their prowess in war, their reputations alone gave enemy soldiers pause long before they'd stepped onto the battlefield. The fear their mention struck into the hearts of warriors was a weapon in and of itself. 5. The Immortals. A lot has been said and written about the Spartan war with Persia during the ancient times, though we forget that most of it doesn't narrate the full story. The Spartans, even though outnumbered, had a distinct advantage in the form of the narrow mountain pass they were defending during the Battle of Thermopylae, and also, that was only one battle. The force they were fighting, on the other hand, was one of the best in the world at that time. The Immortals were an elite force of exactly 10,000 men, no more and no less, and were instrumental in many great victories of the Achaemenid Empire, one of the, and possibly the, biggest empire before ancient Greece. During that time, 1. They wore a minimal amount of armor and relied primarily on scaring the enemy with their fear tactics, much of which was, look at those badasses who need no armor. Even during the Battle of Thermopylae, they ended up succeeding by attacking the rear of the Spartan defense, and they won most of the battles they ever took part in. The Immortals were one of the most feared units of the ancient world, no matter what the movie 300 would have us believe. 4. Thessalians. Alexander the Great's massively successful conquest of vast regions of Asia is largely attributed to his prowess as a capable general, and while that may be true to an extent, what is often missed is the backing of the capable army left to him by his father. When they started out, Macedonia would have never had a chance against the cavalry-heavy armies of Persia, though things changed when they conquered the kingdom of Thessaly and got their elite Thessalian cavalrymen, along with the rest of Philip II's trained army. Now, they weren't just known for their victories in Greek armies. Thessalians were legendary cavalrymen at a time when empires in the region were still finding their way around horses, and were used as mercenaries to great success by other empires. But it was when Thessaly was conquered by the Macedonians that they truly lived up to their potential. By far one of the best units of Alexander's armies, they were the only unit which participated in all the great battles during Alexander's invasion of Persia, and they were instrumental in his victories. It was said that it was nearly impossible to defeat a Thessalian unit in formation due to their rhomboid arrangement, rather than the usually deployed wedge one, and their loyalty to Alexander. 3. Nordic Housecarls. One of the most important and pivotal parts of British history is when the Vikings showed up. After years of honing their marauding skills and building their own consolidated empires in the north, they made their way to English shores for riches and possible knowledge of what lay further west. With them, they brought their unique fighting styles and weapons and, of course, their own brand of elite corps that hadn't been seen in the region before, Housecarls, also known as Huscarls. Before the Norman conquest, Housecarls used to be personal bodyguards to the various Nordic kings, though it was when the Danish king Canute, aka Nut, conquered England that they started showing up in the records as one of the most fearsome fighting units in Europe. Many subsequent English kings employed Housecarls as an elite part of their forces, as well as provided them with various administrative roles and senior political positions along with their traditional cutting people down duties. Somewhat like knights in later centuries. 4. The Housecarls were also covered head to toe in mail armor. They traditionally fought with heavy two-handed battle axes, though were also proficient with spears and swords, with their trademark kite-shaped shields. 2. Tuskegee Airmen. Tuskegee Airmen is a name given to units of African American pilots in World War II, and if you remember, the US was still a segregated society at that time. The pilots were recruited from the University of Tuskegee in Alabama, even though Roosevelt had to go against many of his generals before making the decision due to old-fashioned racism. That was only until they were put into service, though, as they turned out to be among the best-performing pilots in the war. Their role primarily consisted of escorting bombers against Germany's war machine, as the bomber units were still all white. That was only how it started, though. They were soon destroying German aircraft unlike any others, all the while looking out for the bombers. While it was earlier believed that they had successfully protected all the bombers by the end of the war, a few records uncovered later do mention some bombers that were downed, though their record is still impressive. Overall, they flew over 15,000 sorties, destroyed 261 German aircraft throughout the war, and earned 150 Distinguished Flying Crosses for their performance. 7. Tuskegee Airmen were even awarded the Congressional Gold Medal by President Bush in 2007, though many would call that a bit delayed. 1. The Knights Hospitaller. A lot has been said about the Knights Templar, though we either conflate it with or entirely ignore the Knights Hospitaller when we speak about the most potent units that participated in the Holy Wars. Not only were they entirely different units meant for different purposes, the former was more of a multinational corporation, while the latter meant to take care of the pilgrims going to the Holy Land, at least when they started out, but they often found themselves to be at odds with each other. The Knights Hospitaller were established in the early 11th century as harmless members of a hospital meant to take care of the sick and elderly pilgrims in Jerusalem, though when the city was overtaken or taken back, depending on how you look at it, after the First Crusade, the Pope decided that their roles needed to be expanded. From then until at least the 18th century, as their power was diminished after Napoleon invaded their home kingdom of Malta, they participated in many successful wars, many times being the decisive factor in the many victories against the Ottomans, as well as taking part in most of the Crusades. They also successfully raided many Turkish ships, as they were adept at naval warfare as well. They were proficient with many weapons like lances and maces, though it was the sword, like many other knight brotherhoods of the era, that they really preferred. Bonus: the Silver Shields. The Silver Shields were an important military unit of the Macedonian kingdom, known for their impressive armor and silver shields. They played a crucial role in many battles, demonstrating their bravery and expertise in warfare. After Alexander the Great's death in 323 BC, the Silver Shields emerged during the power struggles among the Diadochi, Alexander's generals who fought for control of the empire. The Silver Shields were eventually chosen as the royal guard, tasked with protecting the royal family and the kingdom itself under the direct orders of the king. As part of the Macedonian army, the Silver Shields. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like and leave a comment for better narration and videos.